Hi, good morning. I'm Alister Benn and you're watching Expressive Photography. The midges are awful this morning here and it's the third week of September, so this is not a good thing. Today I've got my 80-400 Nikon on my D850 and I'm out here this morning looking at shallow depth of field. So in this video we're going to look at different images and how we can use very shallow depth of field or even out of focus to make creative and expressive photographs. And the way the midges are this morning, we're in this situation where you kind of feel tense and as if you're being, well, we are being eaten alive, but that tension is coming through in the photographs I'm making. So it's really, really interesting to see how we can be expressive about suffering. So this is literally just out and exploring, and what I've noticed here is some kind of bent over grasses, backlit, and it's just the reflections of the specular highlights here, and they're just forming these arcs. And you know, I'm quite happy with this little composition. Again, using a very shallow depth of field. I'm shooting at 400mm again. I'm just using aperture priority with an exposure compensation. So I'm at 80 ISO, a 50th of a second at f5.3. The midges are still quite bad in here. And I love this, just exploring and seeing and feeling. And we're just beside the road, so you can hear cars going past. We're not in anywhere particularly dramatic. And it's going to be an entertaining, midgie-ridden video, this one. But just the way the light is shining through these pine trees here, and this is really just a scabby little anonymous piece of woodland out here in the west of Scotland. So yeah, we're just immersing ourselves in anonymity this morning. This. I'm really getting into using shallow depth of field here, and I've just managed to isolate one little sharp branch on the edge of a trunk that is itself out of focus, and then a bunch of out of focus stuff behind. So the only sharp thing in the frame is this tiny little branch on the left. And yeah, I'm kind of digging this. Yeah! This is awesome. As we travel around our local area, we're always seeing places that catch our eye. And because we live here full time, the passage of time on these landscapes makes them evolve and change. And when we went out to make this film and to do some photography, we had expectations. I'll be perfectly honest. I went into the landscape thinking, because I've driven past this area so many times, and I thought, right, these are the shots that I'm going to make here, and it's poison for creativity. I call it poison for that, because as soon as you have that expectation, you're blind. Yeah. So when we got to this place, the first thing I've been kind of looking at was this type of photograph with the out of focus grasses and then the birch trees behind. Now, unusually, these birch trees have already lost their leaves. I mean, they're very odd. But anyway, this was the type of shot that I kind of had in my mind. But the combination of the midges biting us and the light just not being quite how I expected it to be, I'll be honest, I wasn't really into this. It isn't inspiring me at all right now. But you know, I listened to the voice in my head saying, okay, you always talk about mindfulness in the landscape, and Wednesday's video was all about that. Be mindful of this. And this is what my photography has become for me, is the opportunity to switch off the outside world and to just tune in to what catches my eye. And what follows for the rest of this video is really just noticing. So the things that caught my eye, that I fell into, really. So this photograph that we did look at, fine, you know, I'm quite happy with it, but it wasn't really doing it for me. The second one, however, I just felt was a natural thing for me to focus on. This shallow depth of field thing was starting to become an issue. I was shooting with my Nikon 80-400 on my Nikon D850, and it's a wonderful combo for really zooming in. And most of these shots were taken, well, I can tell you, this is actually 220 millimeters again. For anyone who watches this channel, you know that 220 millimeters is one of my favorite focal lengths. But anyway, 220 millimeters. So that's zoomed quite in tight. And I just loved the layering, and allowing the background to fall out of focus gives you that sense of depth. Out of focus is an atmospheric element. It's a mysterious element. And for viewers of the channel, you know, I do believe strongly if we can build atmosphere into our photographs, then that can be fog, it can be flowing water, it can be long exposures, and shallow depth of field, mist, rain, atmosphere, you know, anything that's an atmospheric element adds mystery, adds depth. And I've subdued these colors somewhat. They're probably a little less saturated than they were in real time at the moment, but I just wanted to give that slightly melancholic feeling. But again, with only one or two little things in the frame being sharp, the eye just allows to sort of relax into the frame. Yeah, it's not very demanding. And for something it's superficially quite busy, it's actually very ordered, and it's actually quite a relaxed photograph. This is simple depth of field, and this is just allowing the small aperture, or sorry, the large aperture, to render something in the foreground that's close, sharp and detailed, and things in the background to fall into that out of focus thing. And it's exactly the same thing that's going on, is we've got this area in the back that's atmospheric and warm, and feels very ethereal and quite joyful in a way. And then we've got this kind of stark, erect, lichen covered birch branch or birch tree that's somehow very architectural. It's very detailed, and like the video on Wednesday, whether these things are everyone's cup of tea or not isn't really that important, because each of them just reflects a little moment where I was recognizing juxtapositions. I was recognizing things that were here and things that were there, and then changing the relationship with them using aperture. And it's a very, very good way to hone our technique, is to just understand the impact of aperture on the feel of the photograph. Now, the photographs that follow are when I really started to get my funk on, and I was much more in the moment. You know, I wasn't looking for anything. And when I started looking through my camera at this particular scene, I was just struck with these couple of branches that were quite close and kind of infringing on the frame, and everything else is rendered out of focus. And I like this. I truly like this. I'm not necessarily saying I would put it on the wall because I think it's a bit too colourful for a wall, but as a digital moment, you know, as something that was just a life event for me, it feels great. You know, I really genuinely like this photograph. And most of it is out of focus. There's probably 96% of the frame or more is actually out of focus. And I think this is another one of those cases where we can just fly in the face of convention. How many videos are there on YouTube? You know, how to get your photograph sharp from front to back, how to use depth of field to calculate hyperfocal distance and all of this type of stuff. That is something that is going to detach you from creativity. Yes, it is a technical thing and there's a technical fact in terms of using depth of field constructively. And if you do want sharp photos front to back for very valid creative reasons, you have to know that stuff. But equally, don't allow lack of that knowledge to prevent you going into the field and finding something that really gets your funk on. And if you can do that and feel excited and enthusiastic and believe that this is valid, because this is the key thing, isn't it? That if I look at this and I worry, oh my God, if 99 out of 100 people hate this, then it means it's rubbish. That's not true. You know, I know lots of composers who make music that most people don't like, but it's incredibly valid creative music. And for me, just like as I was saying on Wednesday's video, that this was a moment for me where I was in the field, I was excited, I was enthusiastic, I was flowing, and I was using the tool, I was using the strengths of the tool to deliver an aesthetic that I find appealing and engaging. So yeah, I kind of like this one. I've left a little spider's web on the edge of the frame there at the left hand side because I want that tension and I want the eye to go into that spot. If that was taken away, the whole image would lose an awful lot of its energy. And finally, this was the last photograph I took, and it was ironic because you know, there's an element of B-roll necessary in these productions. You know, we have to get shots to show the place and that type of thing. And I'd gone back in to film the drone footage going through the woods here, and the midges were horrific. And I wanted to get some film of using the depth of field, using the focus ring on my 80-400 to show how we can bring photographs into existence by using focus. And it's just, this was one little part of the ring where I really liked it, and I just decided to take a quick frame in 16:9 ratio. So this is full frame, and it's got a lot of energy, it's got a lot of atmosphere, it's got a very joyful morning feel to it, and the panoramic aspect ratio I think really helps to emphasize the kind of scale and the way the arches and the way the grasses are arching over in those kind of nice curved lines, and all of those out of focus little bokeh circles are to me are creating that kind of joyful energetic feel. These types of photographs, like I've said, they're not necessarily going to appeal to everybody, but they are anonymous. They don't require us to travel very far. This could be at the edge of a golf course. It could be in a city park. It could be in your back garden, if you're fortunate enough to have one. These types of photographs are everywhere. Pretty much everything I've taken this week is so anonymous and so everyday that, you know, I think that's so important in this day and age
where we're all flocking to these famous locations and they are getting destroyed. And it's really, really unfortunate that that is the way landscape photography is going. And for myself, as an ambassador for the landscape, it is so important for me to champion the corner of preserving the landscape, because it's such an asset to us. And we only have to look at what's happening in California, Oregon, Washington State, to name just a few places right now, where millions of acres of beautiful landscapes are being destroyed by fires. We must appreciate these little things that are on our doorstep. Thank you for watching, as always. I really appreciate it. This coming Wednesday, I have the real pleasure of bringing to you a Vision and Light episode with Charlie Kramer. Charlie is just one of these guys who seems like he's been on the photography scene forever. He started shooting in the 1970s. Big involvement with Ansel Adams and the Ansel Adams Gallery in Yosemite. He's just a legend. So it was a real privilege for me to get to speak to him. So that's Wednesday, is my interview on Vision and Light with Charlie Kramer. And yeah, as I mentioned on Wednesday there, something very exciting coming, maybe even next weekend, if we can pull it together in time. There's going to be an extra video next weekend where I'm going to be bringing to you something completely different. So I look forward to sharing that with you. So all the best now, and have a great week, everyone, and go out there and find beauty in anonymity. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.